I'll see you in a little while. Have a good day with Papaw.
We are now entering Strongsville. Well, my friends, we have arrived. We are today going to see something that I have wanted to see pretty much my whole life. Now, a lot of people, including me, love to vlog famous movie and TV cars. But there's one that many people probably wouldn't think of that they would love to see. I'm gonna get to see it today. I believe it is inside these doors, and I am super excited. I've always wondered what happened to this, and I've been fortunate enough in my vlogging time to get to vlog just about everything there was left of Sanford and Son. I've got to vlog the old Red Fox production studio where the handprints were, and where the original building was where they filmed that intro. But today, inside this building, we get to see the Sanford and Son truck. Let's go. Because it lives here at Blue Line Classics, just outside Cleveland. Now, before you even enter, they have a really hilarious Rules of Blue Line Classics sign. It says, number 1, if you don't have permission from your wife to be here, please do not enter. 2, if your wife wears the pants in your family, please do not enter. 3, if you wish to make a deal, please have your wife's permission first. 4, if you're hiding from your wife, please feel free to join us. And 5, if you do not follow rules 1 through 3, we have a sofa that you are more than welcome to sleep on. Signed, the management. I can tell I'm gonna love this place. Well, as soon as you walk in, you can see they've got pictures of Jay Leno here visiting the truck. They got Lamont, Demond Wilson here visiting the truck. That's Rollo. If you can get away from the little glare there, there's Rollo. And I'm even gonna get to buy a shirt. How cool is this? They actually have it back there, but they're gonna pull this out so I can so they can bring it out and let me get a better look. And there's Rollo, and there's Officer Smitty. He was also Lester on 227. So just about, you know, everybody who's left in the cast, it looks like, has been out here. Check out that bad boy. Yeah! Look, it still runs, and they play the Sanford and Son music when they drive it around. The truck that used to open every episode of Sanford and Son. We'd see Lamont driving that sucker into Sanford and Son. And this was a show, I mean, this was one of those brilliant Norman Lear projects. But you would think that it was created by Red Fox, but it actually wasn't. This was actually originally a British television show that Norman Lear and Bud Yorkin were deciding to turn into an American television show, and it wasn't actually written for Red Fox. Red Fox's real name is John Sanford. His father was Fred Sanford, and his brother was Fred Sanford Jr. So what ended up happening was basically Red Fox's mom, when he was like 6 years old, she was dating one of Al Capone's bodyguards and ended up running off to Chicago with him, leaving a young John Sanford and his brother to live with their grandmother. Now, what ended up happening was when he was 10 years old, he got expelled from school for throwing a book at a teacher, and basically had to kill his afternoons while all of his friends were still in school by, he would go to the local theater. And that's where he started seeing comedians and musicians, and even formed his own group called the Bon Bons. And actually one of the members of the Bon Bons' name was Lamont. So that's kind of where they got the name. Now, he ended up moving to eventually like hopping a train and living in Harlem and forming a group with Slappy White. But actually before that, what's really interesting is that he was doing the Chitlin circuit and got a side job working in a restaurant, and the people in the like restaurant club would call him Red because he had a red complexion to his skin. Basically, his grandmother was American Indian, Native American Indian, I guess you'd say, and so he always had a little bit of a red complexion. So they started calling him Red, and then some people would call him Fox because of the way he dressed. Now, he ended up using that name, he started going by Red because of that, and he ended up becoming friends with another guy who went by the name Red. So they ended up calling the other guy, whose real name was Malcolm Little, they called him Big Red, and then Red Fox became Red Fox. Now Malcolm Little and Red Fox started hanging out together, and they started getting in a lot of trouble, and Malcolm Little eventually would become Malcolm X. Now what they ended up doing was, while they were hanging out, they would get into, they were actually like kind of breaking the law. They were stealing things and just causing some trouble, and they actually joined the Communist Party during this time, if you can believe it. And they only joined it because they gave away free sandwiches at the meetings. And so eventually Malcolm Little ended up getting arrested, went into jail, found Islam, and then became Malcolm X. Now, Fred Sanford eventually came out of all this, because what ended up happening was that's when Red Fox met Slappy White. They started a comedy group, and Dinah Washington saw them and got them to come to Hollywood. Now, within a month of being in Hollywood, they got into a fight over a girl. Slappy left, and Red stayed out there, started doing some shows, like kind of working at gigs at a place called Club Alabama, and eventually developed that style that we would know him for, that kind of what they called XXX rated comedy. Now, he put out 2 records initially with a black label, and then the black label didn't pay him the money that he was owed, so he was suing them for like $100,000. He said they owed him like $50,000 to $100,000 in royalties, and they ended up settling. He got like $52,000, I believe, and then had no label until Frank Sinatra saw him. Frank Sinatra loved him, put him on a subsidiary of Reprise, and actually got Red Fox some gigs in Vegas. And that's when he became really popular, because of Frank Sinatra's label was kind of a crossover, so it wasn't just you know, black people listening to his comedy albums, it was now like black and white people both. And couldn't have came at a better time too, because when he was doing the Chitlin circuit, they actually made the black performers do blackface, and that was something he's like, I will not put this black gunk on my face and white around my lips just to perform. So he ended up becoming a huge star, and while he was doing those shows in Vegas, that's when Norman Lear saw him. And like I said, they were going, he and Bud Yorkin were already working on a television show that would be based off of a similar named show in the UK. They liked Red, and they brought him in. Now this is where they were kind of genius, was that they realized that when they wrote it, it wasn't for a black or white performer, it didn't really matter, but they saw his humor and said, hey, we can appeal to a wider audience, we can appeal to both black and white people. And so they ended up letting Red go with the name that he wanted, which was Sanford and Son. He wanted to name it after his brother, who had passed away a few years before. And so he ended up getting his childhood friend, LaWanda Page, who was Aunt Esther, a job. And then most of his friends that he had done comedy with growing up, he got them jobs. Now, he originally made like $6 grand per week in like the first 2 seasons, and then got a raise for like, I think, to $10,000. And then like at some point he got $20,000, but he was not happy with that. And what ended up happening was, he felt that he was the star, he was actually improvising a lot of the dialogue, putting his own things, and he felt like he should be making the most money, and the producers were making the most money. And even Damon Wilson said, when we did that, we signed a slave contract. It was a contract that never guaranteed us any increase in pay. When they did do an increase for Red, it was only because Red was just pissed off and was being a pain on the set. He was like always complaining, he was always angry, and he was doing power plays to get what he wanted. When he wasn't getting what he wanted, he just refused to show up to work. And so that's when we had that season where for like 6 weeks or 8 weeks, Grady was living at Sanford and Son taking care of Lamont. And it was pretty sad too, because they when he refused to show up, they filed a lawsuit, and they actually got an injunction where he wasn't allowed to perform at all. So he ended up having to eventually cave, and they canceled the lawsuit, And he did a little bit more Sanford and Son, and then finally he was just tired of it. He was sick of doing it, sick of being treated that way, and he ended up getting his own deal at for like a half-hour comedy special, like a variety show type thing, and that was a failure. So he was a big spender. They said he had a motto of just spend, 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 because he was always bringing in money, and he was spending so much that he ended up opening that production studio on La Brea that I took you guys to that time. If you want to see that vlog, just look up, I think it was called the Sanford and Son Walk of Fame. Look up that vlog, and in there you'll see where his production studio was. LaWanda Page said it was a disaster. She said they didn't produce anything. She said he installed a high-tech recording studio, he installed a movie theater, and the only thing that ever happened was him inviting his buddies to come watch the fight in that movie theater. She said they didn't produce anything. It was just a big waste of money, and she said that's what Red always did. He would file his taxes, but he would never pay them because he was always spending money on his friends, on his family. And then during Sanford and Son, his wife of 20 years, he ended up treating her so bad because of how angry he was working that she basically said she wasn't happy. And he said, if you don't like it, go get an attorney. Pretty sad. I mean, that's a guy who, you know, he felt like he was a big part of this show and felt like they just weren't ever showing him any respect. So this is, if you saw the sign, the actual one and only original Sanford and Son truck. How cool is that? So that wasn't just used for that intro. This was on the set all those seasons because countless times Fred would be waiting for Lamont, hear the truck pull up and go out there and start looking around the truck, or Lamont would be complaining that Fred wasn't helping him unload everything, and that's when Fred would do the, on account of my arthritis. How cool is that? So now it lives here at Blue Line Classics. And I'm actually gonna see if anybody here would like to tell us how they acquired it, how long they've had it. I mean, it's pretty cool. They have sent it out on, I believe, like some tours, so it's been around, but now it's here. To me, this is just absolutely one of the coolest movie TV cars that you can ever see, because it's not one that's often replicated. You can go to a lot of places and see Batmobiles, you can see, you know, famous cars, because they used 3 or 4 different cars for TV shows now, but you look at this, man, this is original and it still runs. You can see where the mirrors are missing. Look inside. Now check this out. It's all signed. There's DeMond Wilson, that's Lamont. And then you can see over here, it says, right off. You know how whenever the officers would come over to visit Fred, and he would mean to say right on, he would say right off. He'd go, right off, and no, it's right on, man. And look at this. They have a customized plate here that says, you big dummy. And then on the other side, they have an original California plate. See, if you look at the tags, you'll see it says 1973 on the red one, and on the yellow it's 1972. So this is probably the original plate for the truck. Because Sanford and Son, I believe, started in 71. Red was, I believe, 50 years old. Portrayed much, much older, but they said all those lines, like well, most of the lines in the show were him improvising. The I'm coming to join you, honey, and stuff. That was all him. That was all him. But like I said, DeMond Wilson said, you know, Red was not, he wasn't out of line for what he did. He said, you know, we signed a master-slave contract that never increased our wages and everything. And he said from the very beginning, the way that the producers had structured the contract, he said they were going to make money on the front end and the back end no matter what, and they just weren't willing to budge. He said he felt like it was a power play, and so he wasn't surprised at all the way that Red would react, and he said, I supported Red. I supported his decision. So look at, there's the original gauges. That is just too cool. I mean, in my opinion, Sanford and Son is hands down one of the most progressive, one of the most interesting, one of the most politically incorrect TV shows that you can watch now. But I think it's a really, really good demonstration if you watch that show to show how racism and racial humor can be done in a way that demonstrates a lot of its absurdity and the humor in it. It doesn't always have to be taken as hateful. And I think Red Fox, aka Fred Sanford, aka John Sanford, I think he was right on the money. I think he was the perfect, this was the perfect show for him for the time, and he will always go down as Fred Sanford as far as I'm concerned. Look at me, guys. They were nice enough to let me sit in the seat of the big dummy. I'm in Lamont's seat. So it's pretty cool. They have a, when they take it out on shows and stuff, this tells the entire story. They literally have the entire story from when it was originally sold at a KCET auction, and the original owner ended up having to lease it back for Sanford Arms and the Sanford Show. And they have the history of every owner that it's had since then. And what's kind of cool is they were telling me, they said they were watching the camping episode, and I just showed you guys the license plate, and he said they actually showed the license plate. Now, this isn't the original license plate, but he said when he saw the license plate, he immediately had to come here and check it out, and said that the license plate that was on this truck was the one from the show. So they actually have it, you know, hidden away in a safe and put this one on here just in case. But how cool is that? And if you look at that particular episode, you can see a lot of these marks, like a lot of the stuff around here. This, I'll find pictures to match it up, but all of this still matches up. And I can assure you guys, at this point, this truck is in the right hands. They were telling me that originally it was like, when they got it, it was a guy who owned a salvage yard. And he just, you know, had a salvage yard, thought this would be really cool to have. And now it's in the hands of people who are huge friends. They're actually are huge fans of the show, and they're friends with all the actors, so what more could you ask for? And they were just showing me on this side of the sun visor, it's signed by Rollo. This one over here, I'll walk over and show you, is signed by Julio. And then on this side, it's actually signed by Woody up here in the corner. Uncle Woody. And check this out. There you can see it's signed here on the bottom by Hoppy. And then up there is Julio, and they were telling me that the guys that they've met through this show are actually cool enough that the actors who aren't in a condition to be able to travel, they actually took the sun visors to them. Like, how cool is that? Rollo took that sun visor to Woody in a nursing home and had him sign it, and Julio signed this one by Hobby. That is so cool. The guys that were involved in this show care that much and want to be a part of this. I love it.
The man signed that one too, in the center of the dash. Up in the top where it says that, God bless you.
Oh yeah.
That's the mines in the center there.
That is so cool.
That's Al Williams, Officer Smitty right there.
Now they said that they ended up buying this from a junkyard, and there's the photo of the car being driven out, and they said that they, how cool is this? You want to talk about things that were meant to happen? They actually made an offer and were rejected, and the family said, well, we're going to put it on eBay. They put it on eBay, and the guys that have it pretty much got it for just about what they offered. So you want to talk about meant to be, this is it. Just buying a shirt before I leave, and one of the interesting stories they were telling me was that at one point the truck itself actually used to be parked out in front of Red Fox's home. If you saw the vlog where I went to his grave and the home that the IRS seized from him, that's the house. It used to be parked right out in front of that house for a short time. Alright gang, we are out of here. How cool of them to keep this alive and let us see it and everything. And they told me a really funny story. He said when we bought the car, when we got it on eBay, we were sitting up late waiting for this auction to end, and then it finally ended at 1 a.m. We found out we were the owners. He said we just immediately went out and got cash and took off. I called my wife and said, we won, we're leaving. She goes, what, you're gonna go now? He goes, yeah, I wanna be there when they wake up. I wanna pick it up. It was just over in Indiana, 1 state away. And yeah, how cool is that? Sanford and Son truck. I even bought 2 shirts. Got one for my stepdad, so help patronize the business. And they said that they're gonna be taking it out to a couple of different shows, and the actors will be there, so they're gonna email me those dates, and I'll post it on here and let you guys know. So if you're in the area, you can come and meet them and see the Sanford and Son truck for yourself. That's it, guys. Have a great night. Goodbye.